Hello and good afternoon. We're going to be looking in this lesson at the definition of relationships, and we're going to be using relationships. First of all, this is all part of our series around data administration within Sage CRM, and we'll be looking at how we can relate different entities together without having a fixed form of relationship defined within the data model. Now, I've changed the order of the presentation slightly. So instead of looking at the definition of relationships in this particular lesson, we're going to be looking at the use of relationships, because it makes sense to look at some use cases and to understand the demo data to show you the possibilities of what the relationship feature provides. Now, as such, this lesson is all about understanding how to use the relationship feature and how related entities work within Sage CRM. I'm going to run through this and log on as a regular user. In fact, I'm logging on as a sales manager using a system that has been implemented with the demo data. So here I'm logging on as the sales manager, Susan May, and you can see that I've come into her screen, her home screen, and this particular screen is showing all of the information about the different opportunities that she has. And of course, we know those opportunities are linked into the context of companies and into persons through the relationship of foreign keys. Now, that's not the only relationships that people can have. So an opportunity, if we think about the sales process, that sale process is going to have not only the core contact that you have, but there will be influencers, there will be a budget holder, there will be even competitive companies all around the opportunity. So this listing of opportunities that we see here, what we're starting to think about is getting to a point where we can model within Sage CRM all forms of different types of relationships to be able to express those additional roles that data may have. Now, just to start to understand how the related entities feature fits into the user interface, I'm going to navigate across to an existing company. I'll pop into Gatecom, and you can see here that we're on the company summary screen. Again, we know if we think about the tabs that are present here, that our tabs include, as we've got the communications that are linked to this particular company, the opportunities, the cases, the persons. All of these are defined and fixed relationships in which this particular company acts as a parent. And we're used to this form of defined fixed relationship using the foreign concept of foreign keys and relations within the database. But real life is not just what is defined by the foreign key lookups. If we think about the way in which we can form associations with other businesses, we might actually want to have something as nebulous as knowing who else is already a supplier to this particular company. So if we're supplying in to a group of companies that we have a particular interest in, for example, in industrial vertical, we could be using, we could find it very useful to be able to know of those top 10 particular industry that are customers, who else are supplying in to those companies. Because it might well be the case that we could identify a business opportunity to form an alliance, to be able to sell more, or to be able to co-represent, to be able to leverage the fact that a particular customer is already buying a particular type of software which is non-competitive to ours, or it might be another product that is non-competitive, and you form that type of relationship. And this is what we're attempting to do with the feature of relationships, which is looking at how data exists not in the form of a strict parent-child relationship or a parental relationship, but looking at the way in which data itself can exist in webs, where you may find that there's commonality between one case and another case, between the idea that, yes, as we are processing this particular opportunity through its workflow, we find that there are other companies that we need to be able to identify as having an influence on that, rather than just the core customer that we're proposing to. So we might actually need to think about the hardware vendors who are involved in the deal, a consultancy company who may well be advising on the nature of the deal, etc. So there are lots of different relationships which form in an ad hoc way, and we want to be able to capture that somehow within inside the CRM database. So we signed ourselves looking at our company page, but if I click here on the relationships tab, you can see that I've dropped down onto the page looking at existing defined relationships. And the defined relationships that we have here are things that we'll be looking at in the next lesson. So we'll be looking at how we go about to create a relationship, to model some other information about the connections between the web of entities in CRM. I can see that I have got customers that have additional directors who are here. I can see that there's ownership of other companies. I can see that there is also relationships which are not vertical in nature, but rather they are associative. And there is a big difference in the way in which we can define relationships within Sage CRM. The first is to do with where the entity that we are in context of is the parent of another entity, and there is the relationship which is the flip side of that, which is where you are the child. So the parent-child relationship is something that can be viewed at from both perspectives. So saying that something like Gatecom is the parent of Simon Yaltoy. So Gatecom is the employer of Simon Yaltoy. Simon Yaltoy is employed by Gatecom. The relationship is able to be defined in both directions, and that implies an ownership or power hierarchy. In the case of the next type of relationship, this is called a sibling relationship inside Sage CRM, and this is one in which there is no difference in hierarchy. Every record within this particular form they are at their peers, they are on the same level, and they just have a distinct relationship with this particular recording context. So being able to identify who is the supplier for a particular company is a good example of that. So as I said, that inside the idea of relationships, some relationships will express a hierarchy. So you've got parents and children, and some relationships imply no hierarchy, but rather they are information that is defined at the same level, and there is no sense of superiority or ownership between the two relationships. They are entirely equivalent. If we go ahead and we start to experiment with this, the actual process of setting up a new relationship, we can see here that we've got Arnold Ball, who is a director of the company. If I hover over any of these relationships, you can see that there is pop-up information starting to appear. So this is the note that's associated with the link between the two entities. So as you move around, you will see different notes being displayed and the different types of information showing and able to be included within inside our system. So there's the last one. Arnold Ball is our company director. So if I want to think about clicking on the plus symbol, so I can click on the plus symbol to start the process of adding a new relationship. You can see that I've got to think about the relationship type. Is this one of hierarchy, or is this one of equivalence? And if it's of hierarchy, then it will be a parent. And if it's not, then it will be a sibling. But here, parent, sibling, child, we're just describing the parent and child are the either end of the hierarchical relationship, where the sibling entirely equivalent. Well, we're dealing with something in which there is a parental relationship. I want to be able to define here who is the director, and you can see that there's a couple of options for us to choose here. Owned by, which is up to the company, or another to a person, identifying them as actually a director of the company. So what I want to do is to choose the director, and that means I can go off and start to think about how to choose this particular person. I could look up, I could go the hard way of looking up and scrolling down the list, or I could have typed a filter in there, but in fact I can also go in and click on find, and you can see I can go and find the person that I want to look for. Clicking on here will return the name back into the field. So Gareth here, Gareth McDade is a director, and I just need to provide a little bit of information to make sense of this relationship. Here you can see that I've provided a note. So if I save this, now we have underneath the directors not only Arnold Ball, but we also have Gareth McDade. So we're able to identify the links between this company, Gatecom, and the other company or the other person who is related to this. So this, you won't find Gareth McDade now underneath the person tab. You would find him held underneath the company where he's employed. But if I click on Gareth McDade, you can see I've jumped across, and very clearly this person is in the context of Eurolandia. So they have their own set of hierarchical relationships in which this particular person is known as a person belonging to the company Eurolandia. But they have, and as we've seen, if I go on to relationships, they have that relationships back to the company Gatecom. So clicking on here, I'm back where I began. So we have now started to get a sense of the different relationships. So if I am looking at my relationships in here, I could define another type of relationship, for example, a sibling relationship. So if I come in here, starting again to create another relationship, but this time choosing, as you can see, I've chosen this to be a sibling, and this is going to be another supplier. and I need to provide the information. So I've stepped ahead. I've done that very quickly. There's Software Forge, and I've provided some information about them as a supplier into this company. So this is not directly relevant to a particular opportunity process. It's not directly relevant to another workflow like cases, but it is relevant that I'm now able to start to associate one company with another company because of relationships that they have that are not things that we're modeling directly, but things that we're starting to build associations with. So it's, if you like, where we can start to record intelligence about the relationships that one company has with another. And I can add that in, and we can see how we've extended now our information within inside the relationships tab. This has grown now 2 additional relationships for Gatecom. We can manage relationships as well. And so if I click on the management of the sibling relationships, you can see that I've got the ability to identify here which, well, in fact, I've got on the right hand side, you can see that I've got a new button, so I can start the process of adding a new relationships. But here you can see that I can also checkbox a particular record, and then I could delete that record, or I could check everything and delete all of the relationships. So I can delete all and sever all of the associations between this record and another. Now, in my case, I want to be able to, I think, just select one and then be able to delete. And you can see that if I'm starting to delete a relationship, it's warning me that I'm just about to remove a record from the database. And I'll choose OK for that. And you can see that it's returned me back into my relationships page. So where does that leave us in terms of using this for business purposes? Well, it's stored in the database, and that means that we can now start to look in reports and into constructing database interaction. So if I go into here into reports and then go into the general area, you can see that, in fact, I've managed to drop straight down into one of my reports. This happens to be a report on, as it says here, related companies to all entities. This is one of the standard reports within Sage CRM. It works very well, obviously, if you've got some demo data. And if I run this report, you can see that it's set up with a chart. But the interesting things, if I scroll down, you can see here that my data, all of those relationships, I'm being able to see the entities that are involved and the relationship type that has been defined in terms of the view. So it's I am supplied by is a supplier of type of relationship. So the report allows us or demonstrates to us that views can be created to make use of this. And where you have defined views, you can start to identify the idea of groups or any other type of customizations, including types of screens that can be based on this information. We've reached that point then to understand the relationships allow us to create webs of connections between Sage CRM entities and other entities within the system. So companies can be related to companies, persons to persons, but also persons that can be related to opportunities where they don't have a direct relationship defined in the direct forms that are done through strictly the referential integrity. This is creating ad hoc relationships as they're needed within the system for whatever purposes that we need. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how those have been set up so we can understand how to create our own new types of relationships and be able to then take those and add those into the interface to be able to support our business's use. Let's see if anyone's got any questions at this point. Thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye-bye.